Is a pain in the butt stopping you from enjoying rowing, or even worse, keeping you from going back to the machine? Well, before you reach for this, watch this. Butt pain when you're rowing comes in two forms. The first is using muscles that you've never used before. Much like doing press-ups and pull-ups, if you've only just started using these muscles, they will take a few rows to get used to the new movement and develop the strength and muscle endurance to row longer and longer. But there's a different kind of pain, pressure pain, soreness that comes from squashing those same muscles. For the first kind of pain, time is your only way out, either just through time spent rowing or smarter time spent rowing. When you first start off, instead of rowing a straight 20-minute piece, maybe split it up into 10 2-minute pieces with 1 minute rest between, using that time to stand, stretch, and maybe rub your sore bits. Although maybe not in that busy gym though. One of my RowAlong workouts called the Perfect Row is just that, perfect for this solution. However, if you've rowed a few times and for a few days in a row, that should be enough to give you at least 10 minutes in the saddle without any discomfort. So if things are still tender when you're rowing, it may well be that your technique and specifically your posture is to blame. Once you get past any discomfort that comes from just using your muscles in a way you haven't previously, one of the biggest causes of butt pain is that your sit bones, your ischias, are rolling over and squashing your gluteus maximus and gluteus minimus, your butt muscles, due to bad posture. Basically, those muscles that you've only just started using are trying to form their own tolerances to what you're asking them to do, and then they're being slammed by a double whammy with your hard sit bones grinding and squashing them into the seat. Taking everything else out of the stroke, the thing to look at is what your back is doing. At the front of the machine, you're leaning into around about a 1 o'clock position, and at the back of the machine, you're leaning back to around about 11 o'clock. Now, your angles may be slightly further than that, but what we need to focus on is that transition between the forwards and the backwards lean, as that's where the potential to really mash up your butt muscles comes in, and where your posture can be the cause and the cure. So let's look at the problem first. And by problem, I mean a slumped posture. Rounded lower back and most destructively, hips tilted backwards with your tailbone tucked underneath you. Try it. Get into this position and just tilt forwards and backwards as though going through the rowing stroke. I can really feel my sit bones grinding over my glutes, squashing and driving the muscle fibers apart, like tenderizing a piece of meat. But feel the rise. From that poor, tucked, rolled posture, tilt your hips forwards, straighten your back and sit up in your sit bones. You should really feel the transition into this position. It'll feel like going from a weak, passive state into a strong, powerful state. Now, if you're having problems hitting the right position, try this. Put your feet on the floor and hands on your knees. Now, I want you to imagine someone has just put an ice cube down the back of your t-shirt. The instinct is to then straighten up your back to avoid it touching your skin. And by placing your hands on your knees, that should stop your shoulders from going back and up. But do check that you've not ended up with your shoulders around your ears. Now you're in this position, tilt backwards and forwards over your hips. Don't go too far, especially if this is something that you're not used to. And it may help to hold on to the top of your hip bones and feel them rocking backwards and forwards. What you should find is that your stomach muscles, in fact your entire core, comes into play, stabilizing you as you hit both ends of the stroke. But most importantly, keeping your posture up and powerful at the back of the stroke, stopping it from collapsing. And if you shift your attention a bit lower to what's going on with your backside, you should feel that your sit bones are connected to the seat throughout the move. And instead of that grinding motion over your glutes, the muscles are much less squished than before. Now, I was careful there to say less squished than before for a good reason. There is still a pressure point where the sit bones are going to press into a much more localized point in your glutes. After a while, this point can start to get a bit tender just from the time spent with your body pressing down on it. Subtle shifts in your posture as you're rowing will hopefully give you some relief in longer rows, but again, this is something that lessens when you row more and should settle down after a couple of weeks. But if you're rowing intervals like the 2 minutes on, 1 minute off I mentioned with the perfect row, take a moment in those rests to reseat your seat. Not only should you have a little wriggle around to ease the pressure point from your sit bones, but also take this time to reset your posture before starting the next interval. This isn't a mask, so before you reach for a seat pad, check your posture. The seat pad may reduce pain by lifting your glutes and sit bones up off the hard seat and poking through a hole, but it may be masking something of a bigger issue with your technique. Something which, if you fixed, would not only help reduce the amount of butt pain you have, but will also make you fitter, faster and stronger. And let's face it, that's why we're all here in the first place. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you're interested in any of my free RowAlong workouts here on YouTube, just take a look through this channel, where there's currently around about 200 workouts, a 2K, a 5K and a 500 meter training plan. And I'm adding workouts all the time. Do leave me a comment and let me know what you thought of this. And more importantly, next time your butt hurts when rowing, just think of me. Well, think of your posture and what I've been saying at least. Stay safe, be well, bye-bye.